Hello, this is Words for Wednesday, and I'm Tom Doherty. When I was a teenager, my folks owned a laundromat, and part of my job was to repair machines, wash machines, dryers, dry cleaning machines, and the like. I remember one Friday night we worked very late trying to get all the machines fixed. They were older, and it just is what it is, right? So the next morning we got into the laundromat, and one of the machines I'd fixed, first thing it broke as a customer used it, because I had a habit of fixing the obvious and not checking the machine to see if there's anything else wrong with it or if there was something that caused the obvious to happen. So my father was upset with me and he barked at me a little bit hard, and I was a teenager and I barked back, and he said, "Get out of here, you're fired." So I left, and a few hours later I came back and apologized, and he hired me back and went to work at fixing machines and busted my knuckles or something, and my dad was getting after me, and I bit back again. He said, "Look, I'm not going to have it. Get out of here. You're fired." And so I was gone again. Early afternoon I came back and said, "I'm sorry. I'll do what you want to do it the way you want it to do it." He said, "Okay," and he hired me back, and I worked on machines for a few more hours, and we got into some other kind of argument, and he fired me a third time, and sent me back. And I came back that night and said, "I will do what you want. I'm sorry. You need help cleaning up," and so he hired me back a third time that day. Well, Joel says, "And cut your heart and not your garments. Now return to the Lord your God. For he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness, and he relents over disaster." When I went back to my dad, it had to be on his terms. He was the employer and I was the employee. Why did I go back? Well, I wanted a good relationship with my dad, number one, so that was important, relationship. Number two was I kind of liked getting paid. I liked my job. I was pretty good at it and wanted to have peace in my heart and my home, and that's how I experienced value, is what I did there. When we return to God, it has to be on his terms. I had to be willing to change how I repaired and checked equipment after I repaired it to keep my job. When we go back to God, he sets the rules and the context. He lays out what is best for us. We must be willing to change to come in line with God's best desires for us. Why? First, because of relationship. Having a right relationship with God is the most important thing. Keeping that relationship intact. A right relationship with God is more important, bigger than anything that I might want. There's one way to true peace, and that is to be in right relationship with God. When we have a right relationship with God, his peace stabilizes our lives. When we are at peace with God, we can be at peace with other people. Joel tells us, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness, and he relents over disaster. In those days, my dad and I both had tempers, but when my dad's temper flared up and he fired me and then hired me back, I could see the truth in Joel's words here. My dad might not have been slow to anger, although he might say he was slow to anger, but what is true for sure is that he showed graciousness and compassion and loving kindness and relented over disaster. How else could you describe a man who hired me back 3 times in the same day? Return to the Lord quickly and live your best life. This is Words for Wednesday, brought to you by Every Church Grows. I'm Tom Doherty. Have a great week.